Hi everyone, this is Carmen from CPAC Enlight. Thank you for watching our program about career development, and we're honored to have Mr. Chen today to be our guest speaker, sharing his work experiences and success from his career. Hi, Chen.
Hi, thank you so much, Carmen, and thank you so much for Enlight for having me here. I really think it's a wonderful opportunity to share my experience and share my stories with the audience here, which is something that I really enjoy doing. So I hope we're going to have a lot of fun and people are going to find this helpful.
Thank you very much. So to start with, can you briefly tell us about your current job position and the experiences from the past 15 years?
Absolutely. So I currently work for Sunlife Capital Management as a managing director for their strategic investments team. So I've been with the practice for about a year so far, and before that I spent about 3 years with the corporate accounting advisory, so supporting various transactions that happen at the enterprise level from an accounting's perspective. And previous to Sunlife, I spent about 10 years at KPMG in between the audit and advisory practices. And before that, I also spent 2.5 years at RBC Finance team. And from an education perspective, I went to McMaster for school. So I studied business program there with a focus on accounting.
It was an impressive profile. And why did you choose accounting at the first place in your career path?
That's a great question. I actually do get that question quite a lot because people always say that you don't look like a typical accountant. I don't really know what that means, but I try to take that as a compliment. But basically, I have to bring you back to my third year university. Basically, how the business program used to work back then was it was a 4-year program. And then the first 2 years, you basically pick a bunch of general business courses and try to figure out what you like the most. So with 2 years under my belt, I pretty much narrowed down my choices between accounting and finance. I was pretty clear that my heart was with finance. That's something that I was truly passionate about. I'm still passionate about finance today. But I also recognize it would be a bit of a risky choice. What I mean by that is, graduating from Mac, I've, at the time, never heard of anyone studied finance who ended up with a job in the field of iBanking, corporate development, or private equity. Not saying there wasn't, I just wasn't aware of anybody. And being an international student at the time who had no work experience and no connection, I wasn't quite confident I was going to be the first one. So I was trying to be more realistic and see what works the best from a job hunting's perspective. So comparatively, if I look at accounting, I think I admit that I wasn't quite passionate about accounting, but I recognize it's a very important skill set. And every single year, we see tons of students graduating from our program who work for the Big Four. And with where I was with my academics and everything else that was happening, I was quite confident I was able to be one of them. So I think really from a job security or job hunting's perspective, I recognize accounting would be a more promising choice. So I was really choosing between my passion and what made the sense for me in the time being. And I chose to be more realistic versus idealistic.
Yes.
And by no means, sorry, last point, I encourage people to do what I did. This is just my personal experience. I would actually encourage people to do quite the opposite, to follow your passion, to follow your heart. But my specific decision was a specific decision made at a specific time. So.
Great. So speaking of working in Big Four, so as we can see, you have been changing job positions back and forth in KPMG Canada and RBC. So what were the reasons?
I get that question quite a lot as well, because from a resume's perspective, it does look a little odd that, I left the firm and sort of come back, because most of the time you don't see that happen. Once people leave the firm, they just leave for good. So in my example, after I graduated from school, I worked for KPMG Audit in Hamilton. Compared to KPMG Toronto, it's a much smaller practice. We didn't have an industry focus. We had a very diversified client portfolio. So I ended up taking a bit of everything. Manufacturing, not-for-profit, university, municipality, you name it. Which was a fun. I think that was a very meaningful experience. But after getting my CA and spending 4 years there, I really wanted to specialize in a specific industry. Like I mentioned, I'm very passionate about finance. I wanted to work for a bank. And luckily, an opportunity came up at RBC in Toronto. And to me, that was a no-brainer. So I accepted that job. I brought myself to Toronto and started to work for RBC. I spent almost 3 years there, extremely meaningful. It gave me a great opportunity to learn about the bank. But I also get a question from people all the time is, why did you not spend more time than you did at the bank? And the simple reason is not because I didn't like it. I enjoyed working for a bank, I enjoyed the culture, but I didn't quite enjoy climbing the corporate ladder. Compared to a firm, I think a large organization like RBC is not so much of a performance-driven environment. It's half performance and half opportunities and timing. So I was young at the time. I didn't have a lot of patience. I put in everything that I could. I got the best rating that I could from a performance standpoint, but I didn't get my promotion that I thought I deserved. So I ran out of patience and started looking for something different. And luckily, the job where an opportunity at KPMG Consulting in Toronto came up, which was very inspiring because I always wanted to be a consultant. And when I think about KPMG Consulting in Toronto and KPMG Audit in Hamilton, I treat them as completely two different employers in terms of the stuff that I do and the client portfolio that I had. So I didn't think about too much. I went back to the firm and spent another 5 meaningful years there and learned a ton.
It was great hearing your story, but my personal question is, how did you benefit from the moves of work experiences?
That's another great question. I think there are a few things that come to my mind. The first thing has to be the knowledge and the experience that you gain from each of the job. When I started at KPMG Audit, I learned about audit. I learned about what it is. I also learned about the client portfolio that I had. Like I mentioned, it's quite a diversified portfolio. So I got to know their industry and their people. And when I moved to RBC, I learned about the bank. I learned about the operating model of the bank and how does the bank make money. And that can be different from one business group to another. For example, retail is different from capital markets, which is different from wealth management. So I think I got a really good understanding of each single one of those business groups. And when I moved to KPMG Consulting, I learned about what it is to be a consultant and also learned about my client, which are different from what I used to have at KPMG Hamilton. And when I finally moved to Sunlife, again, it's a completely different industry. I learned about insurance and I learned about asset management. So I think those things are the first thing that comes to my mind. The second is, by making all those moves, I think you got to know yourself better. You know what you like, you know what you don't like. And I think the latter is just as important as the former. With that kind of understanding, I think the decision choices that you make after can be a lot more accurate, can be a lot more specific. You avoid what you don't like, you get more involved in the stuff that you like. So I think that really benefited me tremendously as well. And the third thing, which is probably one of the most critical, is the network that you build throughout those movements. The people and the client that I met, either my ex-colleagues, my ex-client, are a tremendous asset to me and something that I treasure all the time. I try to maintain that and try to expand it whenever I can. So I'll say those three things: the experience and knowledge, understanding yourself better, and also the network that you built throughout those moves.
So speaking of network, I know networking is essential, especially we focus a lot of activities in our CPAC Enlight. We do a lot of activities to let our young professionals to join to expand their network. So do you consider networking itself is essential when you pursue your career goals?
It's absolutely essential. I would say if you ask 100 people out there, 99 people will say the same thing. And to me, I think every single move that I made always involved networking to a certain degree. And the most recent example is my current role with with SLC, not RBC anymore, with SLC. Long story short, after spending 2 years at Sunlife Corporate, I was ready for my next move. And my philosophy is, every 2-3 years, you should probably try something different. Not for the sake of doing it, but more to gain different exposure and learn something different. So after 2 years under my belt, I identified 3 areas within the Sunlife organization where I wanted to step in as my next move. So what I ended up doing, and this luckily happened right before the pandemic, was I had coffee chat with each single SVP in those fields, express my desire that I wanted to work for their business, and also try to convince them why I can be a valuable addition to their business. It was a great conversation. Nothing really happened right away, like they didn't offer me a job at the spot, and neither that was my intention. I wasn't expecting a job offer, but the attitude that I had was, let's plant the seed, let them know what I want, with the hope that something good is going to happen down the road. And if I fast forward, the following September, my current role actually became open. And the first thing the SVP did was to have someone to contact me and make sure that I was still interested. And I still was, and I didn't have to think too much before I accepted the job opportunity. So the point is, if I didn't have that coffee chat, if I didn't have that opportunity to express my thoughts, express my desire, I probably wouldn't have this opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot more examples like that. Obviously, we don't have the time to say each single one. But before we close on this topic, which is very, very important, I want to say there are two things I want people to keep in mind about networking. The first thing is a constant effort. It's not something that you wanted to do every 3 months or every 6 months. It's a constant effort that you have to maintain your network and try to expand it. The second point of that very specific point is you're not going to expect rewards to happen right away. That's just not how networking works. I think your attitude, like I said, is to go in, try to build connection with people with the best hope that something good is going to happen down the road. It may happen tomorrow, it may happen a year after, it may never happen, but those are the things out of your control. What you can control is keep putting the efforts into networking and let the rest take care of themselves. I think the second part of networking is more of a skill set versus a natural talent. A lot of people think, oh, you know what, so-and-so is so good at talking to people, they're naturally good at networking. I think talking to people and building networking, or networking itself, they're two different concepts. So it's not a natural talent, but rather it's a skill set that you have to develop over time. And for those people who are not as natural, who are, for example, shy or uncomfortable being thrown into a situation of a large crowd and expected to build connection with those people, I know it can be tough. It can be intimidating, it can be overwhelming, but it's something that you have to keep pushing yourself to do because it's just such an essential element of your career progression.
Mm-hmm. It was incredible that you actually get a job indirectly through a coffee chat. But I believe most of us don't have an opportunity to have a coffee chat with, professionals, right? So can you recommend, or what kinds of event have you ever engaged in other than coffee chat?
Yes, that's a great question. Personally, this is just my personal story. I think I built most of my network from my day-to-day job. Mm-hmm. I used to attend a lot of professional events before COVID, or even way before that. I think those are very important, but I think the foundation of your network, this is just my personal opinion, will come from your day-to-day job, right? Your colleagues, your client, your superior, your associate, those are the main source. And you should try to keep, do your best to really try to maintain those relationships. The networking events are great. I by no means discourage people to attend those, but you have to focus on quality versus quantity because it can be a very exhausting effort to try to make it to every single one. So you have to pick and choose which ones are the most interesting to you and most ones you are most passionate about and go from there. Because like I said, you can attend events 24/7 if you want to, but that would be actually counterproductive. So pick and choose what are the most meaningful to you and go from there.
As I can tell, you keep networking during work at the same time. So doing both of them or doing everything that at work, have you ever felt overwhelmed at work? And how did you handle these stress?
So I have to say I feel overwhelmed all the time. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, as you become more senior at an organization, as you move forward along your career path, you're going to feel overwhelmed more often. So what I do when I'm facing overwhelming moments is I try to step back and look at why am I feeling stressed? What's the cause of the stress? And try to do something about it. Is that because I have 1,000 things on my plate, or is that because I'm pushing myself too hard? So you really have to understand the cost of it and do something accordingly about it. Mm-hmm. The second thing about stress management that I personally try to do is I don't show stress, or I try not to show stress in front of my team. Because as a team lead, when you're feeling stressed, or when the team is getting a sense that you're stressed, the chances are they're going to feel stressed as well. Mm-hmm. And that can be very counterproductive for the team. But I'm not saying you should hide the stress all to yourself, because it's not healthy and it can be counterproductive as well. So what I encourage people to do is be open about it with your manager. Maybe they can help you to reduce the stress. They can help you to analyze the situation. So don't hide your stress. Like I said, it's not healthy. Be open about it. And then explain to your boss why you're feeling stressed. Sometimes they're looking things at a broader picture, and they can probably give you some very quick tips that can be very, very meaningful. So I think that's what I do. And the last thing I wanted to say to people is, you need to understand what you can do to help you to relax. Personally, I play sports and I play guitar, so I enjoy music, and those things are my go-to when it comes to stress management. When I participate, or when I play golf, when I play basketball, when I play guitar, I feel like my mind can be completely off work. So you have to figure out what that is to you. It could be sports and music. It could be going out for a run, go out, for a drink with friends. But you have to figure out what it is to you and keep on doing it, because it's tremendous. It's very, very important for your mental health, which can produce a lot of good things for your day-to-day job.
It was great hearing that you have recognized mental health and physical health is important when working so hard. So how do you maintain a work-life balance?
Before I answer that question directly about how I maintain my work-life balance, I wanted to say a couple of things about work balance itself. The word balance can mean differently to different people. I know some people that can just work 24/7. They enjoy working. They find so much joy from working. There's nothing wrong with that. And I also know a certain group of people that they cannot work past 5 o'clock. Once 5 o'clock hits, their brains just start to, they just don't function anymore. I think those are two extreme groups of people, and most of us are somewhere in between. So you have to figure out what balance means to you. And once you realize that, you gotta do something about it. My personal story about work-life balance is, no matter who you are, either the CEO of a company or an analyst of a small team, you need work-life balance. You need your weekends, you need your vacations, and you need R&R. Because if you don't, likely your body at some point is gonna break down. When I was younger, as a younger professional, working for a firm, I didn't pay a lot of close attention to work-life balance, and I ended up paying a big price for it. So the story goes back to my last 2 years at KPMG. I worked on a very, very tough project. The project was extremely demanding, very fast-paced. The client was demanding. There was a regulatory deadline there, meaning certain things had to be done at a certain time. So the stress was constantly there. I think you probably heard of the term busy season for the Big Four.
Yes.
I felt like I was in a busy season for 2 years. And to make it even all worse, I had a bad wrist injury in my last summer there. So I couldn't really play a lot of sports either, or do anything else outside of working. And I realized that was not going to be sustainable. And my body was really giving up on myself. Starting, I think, in that August or early September, I started to lose my sleep. I could not sleep. I probably had 2-3 hours of sleep every night and go back to work for another 12-13 hours and repeat day after day. And over time, I started to feel anxious. I probably got a little depressed as well, but I didn't know. Even like when I ordered coffee from Tim Hortons in the morning, I felt anxious just talking to people there. That's where I realized I was not in a good place in terms of mental health and physical health, because I should feel pleased when I get a coffee in the morning from Tim Hortons and start my day, but that's not the way I felt. So I needed to do something different, and luckily I got a job with Sunlife, and after 3 years of being very keen on maintaining that work-life balance, I think I'm in a very, very good state right now in terms of physical health and mental health. So the message to the younger professional is, I know you haven't felt it yet. You feel like you can push your body there isn't a limit for it, but you really need to make sure your body is well maintained. It's not made of steel. It's a human body. So eat well, sleep well, make sure you exercise, and make sure you always keep an eye on that work-life balance, because like I said, it's just critical. It doesn't matter who you are.
These are some very great tips for young professionals, because I keep pushing myself, working overtime every day, because I was actually working as an accounting clerk 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yes.
That must be tough.
That's why I just changed my industry. I changed my professional fields. So my last question is a conclusion for this interview. So if you get a chance to travel back to 15 years ago after your undergrad, right? So what would you advise yourself? And would you make any changes for your career goals?
That's a very interesting question. So I think 15 years ago, when I was like 22, 23, as a fresh university graduate, if I ever had the chance to talk to that person, I'll probably say a couple things. Number one is be willing to pursue your passion. Be more brave about what you wanted to do. There's absolutely nothing to lose at that time. There's no opportunity cost per se. You can try different things and figure out what you want the most. I think I heard this from our CEO before. Before you turn 30, obviously there doesn't have to be a certain age, but let's use 30 as a benchmark. It's all about exploring what you like and what you don't like. So really follow your passion. If I had to talk to myself 15 years ago, I would say, Jin, just be a little brave. I know you love finance. Maybe that's what you try to pursue instead of accounting. Obviously, I don't think I had a huge regret for doing what I did because, like I said, I had a specific reason to do that. But if I had to do it again, I probably would encourage myself to bring myself out of the comfort zone and take a bit of a risk. And the second thing is, don't always sprint. Don't always look up. Don't always feel like you're on the go. Have to move on to the next target once you get on the first. That's not how your body should be maintained. I think it's okay to take a pause once in a while and enjoy what you have achieved. Enjoy what you have done versus always looking up and feel like you're on a run. So I think, looking back, I probably should have enjoyed what I've achieved a bit more versus always push myself to the next achievement. So that would be the second advice. And the third one is about health, which I mentioned repeatedly. It is the most important asset of yours when it's working, but it can be the biggest burden of yours when it's not working. So like I said, for the young professionals, you haven't felt it yet. You feel like your body can sustain 24/7 hours of working, but that's not how our body is built. So make sure, again, you sleep well, you eat well, you have proper diet, talk to your friends, and then do something that you really enjoy outside of work, because that's extremely important for your mental health, which is a big part of your overall health.
I totally agree with that. Just like be brave, take care of yourself, especially pursuing your career goals. Take a pause. Just don't focus and look up too much.
Exactly.
Yes. So thank you very much for being here again. It is
Thank
our
you for
honor to
having me.
have you, to have a guest speaker. And also thank you very much for watching our program from CPAC Enlight.